Hi there.
Hi.
What's your name?
Hi, I'm Jessica.
Jessica, very nice to meet you. My name is Allison. What brings you here today?
My relationship.
Okay, what's going on in your relationship? Tell me a little more about that.
Well, my girlfriend and I have been together for like probably almost 3 years now.
Okay.
And I kind of would like things to be a little more serious than they are.
Okay.
You know, we moved in together, and then a while later, like, we didn't break up, but we decided not to live together anymore. But like, she still wants to be with me and everything, but I'm kind of hurt by that. And now we both live apart, and we still see each other a lot and love each other a lot, but I just feel like it's just stuck, you know?
Okay. So you kind of feel like your relationship is a bit of a standstill right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm here to sort of help you kind of work through that. So I think that we can, get to the point in which you're feeling better about your relationship again. Tell me a little bit about how you two met.
Well, we both played softball, and one night she was on a different team than I was, and our teams played each other, and our team beat hers, and we were like out at a bar, kind of just hanging out as a team, and her team came in, and I hadn't really noticed her while we were playing, but you know, the helmets come off, and you know, all of that, and we just started talking, and we kind of, things just kind of moved naturally from there. It was instant, pretty much.
That's great. So tell me a little bit more about, some positives of the relationship. Like, when your girlfriend comes to mind, what are some of the first things that you think of that are positive in terms of her qualities, or?
Well, she's really strong, like, physically and mentally. She has chronic pain and deals with a lot, and she kind of still is active and really, like, I don't know, she's just a strong person. I really respect her. She's always trying to take care of me, even with anything that she goes through. She is just kind of like there for everybody. Like, I love that about her. She's there for her friends, her family, for me. She's smart. Like, she's always reading some book about space or this or that, and I'm like, Jesus, because like, I want to read People magazine sometimes, you know. And she's really intellectual, and I like that about her. I don't know. She's funny, and she makes me laugh.
I think she has a lot of great qualities.
Yeah.
Tell me, if she were sitting here with you right now, what do you think that she would say about you?
That's a really interesting question. I think, I don't know, my mind just goes to negative things, I guess. Even though I know she thinks good things about me, my mind immediately goes to negative. Like, that she would say I'm clingy, or that I need too much from her.
Okay. And what makes you feel that way? Is that something that she's verbalized to you?
She's never used the word clingy, ever, but that's what I feel based on the stuff she says.
Okay.
She says, like, I mean, it was mostly her decision to not live together anymore. I wouldn't have chosen that.
Okay. And how did that come up? So you were living together, and then what ultimately led to that decision, on her part, it sounds like, to sort of go your separate ways in that way?
Well, we got along, I mean, we've always been kind of, I don't want to say we fight a lot, because we don't, but we're just different people in a lot of ways. And I think she tends to hide her emotions a little more, and I wear mine more on my sleeve. And, you know, I would come home, like sometimes you have a bad day and you want to vent. But, like, I'm not a negative person. Like, my friends would all say, like, I'm a positive person, but, like, she sees me as negative because, like I'll tell her about my day, like, the good and the bad. So, it's like, she would say, like, oh, well, there's always problems with you. You're always having problems. And, like, that really hurt me a lot because, to me, it wasn't problems, it was just life. Like, just everyday stuff. It's not like I'm, like, laying them on her, like, you need to fix this, or, like, it's not like there are problems with her, so I don't really understand. Like, she's like, well, you should just vent to your friends. And I'm like, well, you're my partner, like, you know, and, so I never really, like, understood, like, why, you know, she wasn't able to be there for me in that way. And, you know, that kind of, like, wore on things for a while, and, you know, it came time to renew our lease, 6 months ago, and we didn't really like our place, that we were living in, and so we were looking for new places, and one night she just was like, we need to talk, type of thing, and I'm like, I was worried she was going to break up with me, but she kind of was just like, I think we should, I don't like want to say take a step back, but I think we should maybe go back to living, because we were both living alone when we met. We didn't have roommates or anything, and I think we should go back to living separately. And I was shocked, and I just tried to hold my feelings in, because she seems to want me to hold my feelings in. So, I don't know, but that's kind of how it happened.
Oh, so it sounds like right now, you know, what you want, it seems, you want her to be that kind of outlet for you. You want her to be that person who you're able to vent to, who you're able to confide in, and she's not really accepting that. And that must be really difficult, you know, to hear that someone is kind of redirecting you to friends or family to talk about certain things in your life that you would, you know, ideally like to talk about with your partner. That must be frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, she told me from the beginning that she needs honesty in our relationship, and for me that's really difficult, to be honest, because I feel ashamed about stuff.
So you have trouble, do you hold back from confiding in her then sometimes?
I always have in other relationships, but when she told me how much honesty was important to her, I realized I had to make a change. Because my instinct in the past has been to, I don't want to say lie, like deceive, but hide problems I'm having, I guess, or just kind of hide who I am a little bit. So when she told me she wanted me to be honest, I started being honest and telling her about stuff that was going on in my life.
So it sounds as though she's saying so it sounds like we're talking about two different things. So she's saying I want honesty, and you feel that you're applying that to the relationship by, you know, taking the steps to confide in her and tell her things.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds very challenging. You know, it sounds like she has a different idea of what honesty means. It sounds like she would probably, you know, obviously if something crucial came up, something important, in which she would kind of be obligated to tell her, it sounds like that is sort of what she would want to hear.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, you know, your idea of honesty is, you know, confiding in her, letting her know how you're feeling, how you're doing, sort of having communication.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're sort of on different pages when it comes to that.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that's pretty true.
And when was the last time that you did confide in her? And what did that scenario look like? What was her reaction?
Let's see. Trying to remember, because it's a lot of little things, you know, like
Mhm.
there's really not big stuff that's
Mhm.
like looming, you know. I would say probably feeling insecure about her feelings for me. Like I told her that, you know, like since we moved out and we have our own places again, you know, I feel insecure about our relationship, and I feel like she doesn't really love me, or that if she loves me, it's like not as much as it used to be. And she kind of did this, not this again type of thing, you know?
How did that make you feel when she said that?
Like shit.
What would you have rather heard? What would have been the ideal sort of response to that?
Some form of compassion, because to like kind of like roll your eyes and be like, oh, not this again, like kind of fucked up. Like I would have wanted anything, like just you've come up with this before, you've said this before, but I love you and that nothing's changed. Or maybe I know this transition's been hard on both of us and you're doing great and I love you. So any kind of like positive response to it.
Any kind of validation.
Anything.
Okay.
Yeah, anything. And then there's just nothing, you know.
So I want to take a couple of minutes, just sort of reflect on some of the things that you've done personally to fix this. Can you maybe think back to a time in which you were actively, you know, obviously seeking out a solution, which you're doing here by obviously coming and seeking help, but can you think of a time in which you approached her and were able to kind of, you know, voice your concerns and what that looked like and what her response was?
You mean like a time she responded positively?
It could be anything. It could be a time where you actively sought out to fix the problem at hand, and and regardless of how she responded.
Well, I've told her before that compassion is really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if she's not feeling something, I don't want her to lie about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But
Absolutely.
there's been times that I've said, you know, well, I really listen when I come to you with certain things, especially if it's like a concern about us feeling insecure. I just need some kind of validation or reassurance. Like, that's it. You know, it doesn't have to be this big thing or this big gesture, but just don't worry about it. I love you. You know, or I'm sorry you're feeling that way. And she just kind of was like, well, you need to work on that yourself. Like, your neediness isn't my fault. You know, like, I didn't cause this. You're just like this. This is who you are. Like, and I was pissed off because I was like, well, this isn't who I am. It doesn't define me. It's just one part of how I'm feeling. I'm not like someone walking around with like this inferiority issue. I feel like very confident in lots of areas of my life. Relationships, I guess, are hard for me. I feel insecure in relationships.
But going back to what you said about you don't feel inferior when you're by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you're in a relationship, you do.
Mhm.
Okay. Tell me a little more about that. Where do you think that comes from?
I don't know. I feel like when I'm alone, like when there's no one else for me to have responsibility for or care for, in that intimate way, and I can kind of just be responsible for myself and just do me and don't have to worry about that affecting anyone. I'm way more like independent and I feel empowered. But when I'm in a relationship, I tend to care automatically, just instantly. I start caring more about what the other person needs than what I need. I like don't really know how to balance be me with being in a relationship. I feel like I lose me sometimes when I'm in a relationship. And I know I'm doing it, and then I try to do me, and then I feel guilty. I feel like I'm doing something wrong.
So you feel like when you are doing something when you're focusing on yourself and you're focusing on your life, you're feeling guilty about the fact that it's potentially taking something away from that relationship? So are you feeling less present in the relationship when you're focusing on yourself?
Yeah. I'm feeling like I'm being selfish, or that my partner is gonna pull away from me if I'm focusing too much on myself. Even though I know in my mind it's healthy to focus on myself sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just get worried that if I'm too focused on myself, then they'll leave me. You know.
And do you think that this is something that's currently happening in the relationship right now? Do you feel as though right now your partner's behavior is a result from you potentially being too focused on yourself?
Maybe. I don't know. It's tough because the only way I've been focused on myself lately has been to obsessive worry about how she feels about me. But I haven't really been doing much for myself. I don't see friends as much anymore. It's not like it's her fault. It's sometimes I want to spend more time with her, and I'm busy, and I tend to put responsibilities in a relationship top priority, and family and friends below it. I put my life first, and then everyone else's life second. And I haven't seen friends as much lately and stuff. And I think if anything, she maybe feels more crowded by me. I mean, obviously she does. She didn't want to live together anymore.
You think that's the reason, because she felt crowded? You think that she needed space?
Well, it's kind of what she said, She when we discussed renewing the lease, or not renewing it, I'm sorry, when we discussed getting a new place, she was like, I think we should live separately. Things just seem to work better that way, and when we're living together, it's just too much, there's too much connection. I just feel rejected.
And how would, on your end, and potentially from her end, I mean, if you guys have talked about this, how is it working? How is the arrangement benefiting her? Has she ever talked to you about that? Or have you?
No.
So she hasn't expressed any kind of indication that things are better or things are worse?
Not really, no.
But for you, you would say that obviously it's not your ideal situation.
Because I want things to be more serious, I'm thinking about getting married and having kids. I want to move towards that, and to me that felt like a huge step back. It's we don't even see things the same way.
And did you see things the same way at one point?
Well, she wants that stuff too. She's talked about it. It's not like she's commitment phobic or anything. She wants to be with me. I do worry about her wanting someone else, but logically, she would never. If she didn't want to be with me, she'd tell me. I know that. But when I think about being on the same page, if she wants to not live with me, logically she can't be thinking, too much about the future. People don't get married and live apart. At least not very often. I've heard of it, but I don't know. I feel like at one point, yeah, we both, I don't know what changed. I don't know. I feel so guilty that, at one point she loved me enough to want to live with me, and now she doesn't. That's what I feel like.
So it sounds like you are internalizing her behavior a little bit, and that sort of manifested itself into guilt. It sounds as though obviously she made a choice that was a personal choice on her behalf, and it doesn't sound like it was a mutual decision. And you're taking that and you're sort of creating kind of almost like a false sense of guilt and shame, and it seems as though you're convincing yourself that that decision is falling back on you, that it's your fault.
Well, I mean, it is, isn't it? Because, like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but, I mean, we made a choice to live together, and we lived together, and something about living together with me bothered her enough that she didn't want to do it anymore. So to me, it's like, I mean, to me, yeah, that's me. I did that, you know, I caused that, because if she was happy with me, she'd want to live with me.
But I'm wondering if there's something potentially going on in her life, you know, sort of separate from the relationship, that kind of ignited that ultimate decision.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's possible?
Yeah, I guess, but like, when I think about her life, I think of like our life together, you know, like if there's something separate that's going on, like, wouldn't I know about it, or wouldn't she want to tell me about it? I mean, I don't see how she could make that decision to live separate
If it had
nothing to do with me.
you.
Yeah. To me, it's linked.
I can imagine that thought of you doing something to ignite that decision, and you know, you feeling like you have something directly to do with why the decision was made can be really hard, and it must be something that's really bothering you.
Yeah. I feel guilty, like, all the time. I mean, it's kind of nice living alone sometimes, because we both need a lot of alone time.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, I just find myself feeling guilty, and, like, wishing that it hadn't happened, wishing we were still living together.
And what do you do when you feel guilty besides wishing those things?
Kind of hard to be honest about it, but like wallowing, I guess. I mean, like, I'm not like going out and doing things, like, I mean, I'm definitely not like addicted to anything, but like, I definitely like don't want to feel things sometimes, and I'll have a few glasses of wine. I mean, it's definitely nothing that like affects my life or anything, you know, it's completely manageable, but I know it's not the healthiest thing to like blunt my emotions or whatever. So I'll like drink wine or smoke weed or whatever. Kind of just zone out, you know, like watch TV. Like I feel too ashamed to like go out, you know what I mean? Like too ashamed to like scrape myself up, you know, off the floor and like do things that I'd normally want to do.
Well, it sounds like that emotion of guilt is weighing pretty heavily,
Yeah,
on your kind of
yeah, it is.
overall well-being, daily routine. It seems to be, you know, affecting you, not in drastic ways, as you mentioned. You know, you mentioned a couple of coping skills that are harmless, but so it doesn't sound as though you're engaging in any kind of, you know, risky or behavior.
Not really. No, nothing unsafe.
But still,
but I know
Mhm.
that, you know, drinking wine and smoking weed to feel better, you know, it could be a slippery slope. I'm just
Absolutely.
not the kind of person like who would let that happen, you know,
Mhm.
like I have too much control over myself to like let that be a huge problem, but sometimes when I do it, I'm like, I know this isn't healthy, you know what I mean? Like, I know it's not the best way to cope,
Mhm.
but I have a hard time.
Excuse me. Sure.
I have a hard time, like, getting myself to do more healthy things.
Well, and going back to what you said, I noticed that you said, you brought up the term control. You mentioned that you feel that you have control over your actions. But obviously you feel a lack of control in the relationship. And this goes back to when we were kind of comparing and contrasting, you know, life on your own, focusing on yourself, obviously, you know, functioning independently, and then we compare that to the way that you're functioning in the relationship, and there's a lack of control. There's a lack of, there's sort of a, or I wouldn't say lack of control, but not as much control in the relationship as you have control in your life. But that's really interesting to me, because it sounds like you have the capabilities to function on your own, and I'm wondering if we can isolate certain thoughts that you have when you are, you know, kind of on your own and doing great, and you know, engaging in things that are continually building your confidence. I'm wondering if we isolate those things and try to apply them to sort of the way that you're kind of engaging in your relationship. Sort of kind of applying everything to the relationship, because it sounds like you sort of have a mindset where you're able to be in control, and I think that somewhere in there is a capability to be in control in your relationship.
Yeah. I like that idea, I just don't know how to do it.
Right, and that's what, you know, that's what we're here to work on, and I really think that we can get to that point.
Okay.
Cool. So I have a worksheet for you that I can go over with you, and then I'm going to be sending you home with a couple of kind of little activities to do, worksheets, a couple of handouts. But I wanted to go over one with you during our session today, just to sort of kind of prepare you for that task once you leave here.
Okay.
So I want you to write down your current thoughts about what's wrong with either with your partner or with your relationship as a whole. Just a couple. It could be a couple of words that describe it. It could be, you know, a few sentences. And then I want you to focus on how does your mood change when you find yourself becoming fixated on that. You know, we mentioned that you feel guilty, you feel kind of a lack of control. And then when you buy into or dwell on those thoughts, what effect does that have on your relationship? So I want you to go ahead and write those down, and then we'll look at them together once you're done. Yes, I do.
Oh dear, I'm such a mess today.
Those days, we all have them. busy waiting room.
What?
The waiting room
Yeah.
of our office. It's very packed today.
Must have a really busy practice.
Mm-hmm.
You sound like a pretty good therapist.
What's that?
You're a pretty good
Thank
therapist.
you. That's so nice.
You clearly know your stuff. You must have been practicing a long time.
Yeah, a few years now.
Stuff's probably old hat to you. Alright. Sorry, just give me a couple more minutes.
Absolutely, take your time. This is all, you know.
I like this worksheet. It seems really helpful.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of clients, you know, find it really helpful to actually do the assignments in therapy because then that way I'm here to kind of.
It seems really simple too. Like going through this, it's just like, oh, duh. You know, it's like, what's wrong? How does it change my mood? And then how does it actually change things outside of my mood? I like this a lot.
I'm very glad that you're getting something out of it.
Yeah, I feel like even just writing it, it's helpful.
That's great.
Okay, let me see. I have chicken scratch handwriting, so I hope I get to read this to you, because I'm not going to be able to, you won't be able to read it. One more, and I'll be done.
No rush whatsoever.
done.
Let's see what you got.
Okay, well, the first thought about what's wrong with our relationship is that she wants to live apart and I want to move forward, and I don't feel that living apart is compatible with the level of seriousness we both say we want. The mood change when I get caught up in those thoughts is that I feel anxiety about the future. I feel kind of like things are never going to get better, or I worry about what things are going to look like instead of just enjoying life right now. And the way when I dwell on those thoughts, it creates just constant anxiety. And then when we're together, the time we do have together, things are tense, and I can't really just enjoy the moment. And I know that if that when I'm feeling that kind of anxiety, it really ruins the time we have together. So that's one problem. Another problem is she doesn't like, we already talked about it, she doesn't like when I vent or have issues. Not like all the time, but she thinks I have too many problems or issues, and she thinks I'm being negative. The way that changes my mood is that I get angry. I hold resentment about that because I feel like I should be able to tell my partner things that are going on, especially if she wants me to be honest. So then when I'm angry, I try to, withhold things from her, like, because I'm constantly thinking about, like, what I'm doing, and I feel guilty afterwards for withholding stuff. I just feel ashamed and guilty that I'm not being honest or being open. And when I dwell on the fact that she doesn't like me venting, I start to feel resentful towards her, and I overthink everything. Like, should I say something? Should I not say something? And that leads to more problems in our relationship. The last thing that I put was, what's wrong with our relationship is that I don't feel there's enough affection or intimacy since she's moved out, since we've moved apart. That makes me feel depressed, inadequate, and have a lack of confidence. And when I dwell on that, she pulls away and wants to spend less time and be less affectionate with me, which is the exact opposite of what I want. So, yeah.
That's great. And how did it feel, kind of writing everything down and sort of having it, because I know it's one thing to kind of talk about it, it's obviously another thing to feel it ourselves, but how does it feel kind of looking at that piece of paper and seeing sort of all of these thoughts and feelings laid out like that?
Well, I felt sad, but I also feel relieved.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that a lot of this stuff isn't really rational. Like, I mean, of course it's rational to feel the way I feel, but when I look at what's wrong, or like what I'm finding wrong, and then I look at the mood change, which seems pretty natural progression.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I look from the mood change to what happens when I dwell on that mood and that feeling, it's like, fuck, it's like right in front of me. Like, it's obviously not doing, staying in that mindset of feeling guilty or depressed or angry. That's affecting the relationship really negatively. And I know it's not like my fault, but I know that I can control that. I can control. It's hard not to feel depressed or inadequate. It's hard not to feel guilty about holding things back. But when I do it, that's the clear consequence, because if I wasn't feeling those things or wasn't acting that way, then there wouldn't be a reason for her to pull away or to think I'm constantly anxious or whatever. So I think it makes sense. I liked doing it.
I'm glad. So it sounds like, this kind of helped you sort of put into perspective some of the things that you do have control over, the things that you don't have control over, what you're willing to accept and what you're able to change. Yeah, that's great. And so I have a couple more assignments for you that I'll give to you to go over, and even if you want to include your partner in some of these, that's, you know,
Yeah,
that can't
she might
hurt.
like that.
Great, and if she ever wants to come in for a session,
Yeah.
that's obviously an
She's
option.
not big on the psychobabble stuff, no offense, I'm into it, she's not, but I think at this point, like, I know she loves me and she wants things to change, so I think she might be open to this.
Okay, that's great. Well, I look forward to seeing you for our next session.
Thanks.
Take care.